The final bell rang across Westfield High School as students rushed to their seats. In the back corner of room 103, a girl named May sat quietly, her oversized navy hoodie pulled down low over her face. The hood cast shadows across her features, making her nearly invisible among her louder classmates. Mr. Daniels, a math teacher with 20 years of experience and thinning patience, began writing equations on the whiteboard. His chalk tapped rhythmically as he explained the day's calculus lesson to the class of seniors. Everyone focused on his explanation. Everyone except May. At 16, May was 2 years younger than her classmates. She had skipped grades earlier in her education, a fact that most students and even some teachers had forgotten. She kept to herself, never raising her hand, never volunteering answers. To an observer, she might have seemed shy or even struggling to keep up. Mr. Daniels glanced at the back row, noticing May's downturned face. From his perspective, she appeared to be doodling instead of taking notes. Again, page 43, everyone, he announced, adjusting his glasses. These logarithmic functions will definitely be on your midterm exam. The students dutifully opened their textbooks, all except May, who continued drawing in her notebook. What Mr. Daniels couldn't see were the complex patterns filling her pages. Not random doodles, but advanced mathematical formulas and proofs that went far beyond high school curriculum. "Is there something more interesting in your notebook, Ms. Lin?" Mr. Daniels called out, causing several students to turn and stare at May. She looked up briefly, her dark eyes meeting his for just a moment before returning to her work. "No, sir," she replied softly. Mr. Daniels sighed and continued with the lesson, making a mental note to speak with her after class. This wasn't the first time he had caught her seemingly not paying attention. What the frustrated teacher didn't know was that Mai had already mastered the material being taught in his class. While he explained basic differentiation, she was working through university-level topology problems in her notebook. The margins were filled with equations that would challenge even college professors. Each day followed the same pattern. Mai would arrive early, take a seat in the back corner, and work silently on her own mathematical explorations while half listening to lessons she had understood years ago. At home, she had a bookshelf filled with advanced mathematics textbooks borrowed from the local university library. Her parents had noticed her exceptional abilities when she was just 5 years old. Instead of watching cartoons, she would ask questions about patterns and numbers that left them speechless. By age 8, she was solving algebra problems meant for high school students. But despite her obvious talent, May had grown increasingly withdrawn over the years. "Remember to complete exercises 6 through 15 for homework," Mr. Daniels said as the period neared its end. He watched Mai carefully as she finally closed her notebook, tucking it quickly into her backpack before anyone could see its contents. As students packed their things, Mr. Daniels rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. Each day, he tried different approaches to engage the quiet girl in the back row, and each day he felt he was failing. Her apparent disinterest in his class was becoming a personal frustration. If only he knew what was actually inside that notebook. If only he could see past the quiet exterior to the brilliant mind hidden beneath. Maybe then he would understand why May never seemed to listen, why she never seemed to care about his carefully planned lessons. The classroom emptied quickly, leaving behind only the smell of chalk dust and the quiet ticking of the wall clock. Tomorrow would bring another chance for Mr. Daniels to reach his most puzzling student, or another opportunity for misunderstanding that would soon come to a head. Monday mornings were always tough at Westfield High. The hallways buzzed with weekend stories as students dragged themselves to first period. Outside, dark clouds threatened rain, matching the mood inside Mr. Daniels' classroom. Mr. Daniels had spent his Sunday evening grading tests instead of watching the football game. The disappointing results had put him in a sour mood. Most students have struggled with the logarithmic equations, and his frustration was building as he handed back the papers. "Class average was a C-," he announced, pacing between the rows of desks. "We need to do better before midterms." In the back corner, May sat with her usual blank expression. She had scored a perfect 100, completing the test in half the allowed time. After finishing, she had flipped the paper over and continued working on her own mathematical problems in her notebook. Today, May wore the same navy hoodie, but dark circles under her eyes revealed her late night. She had been up until 2 a.m. solving a challenging math problem she'd found online, posed by university professors. The satisfaction of finding the solution had been worth the lost sleep. Mr. Daniels was explaining a particularly tricky logarithmic equation when he noticed Mai staring out the window, watching raindrops begin to fall. Something inside him snapped. "Ms. Lin," he called out sharply, silencing the classroom. "Since you find the weather more interesting than today's lesson, perhaps you'd like to share what's so fascinating outside." 23 pairs of eyes turned toward Mai. She blinked, caught off guard by the sudden attention. "I was just," she began softly. "Just what? Daydreaming? Not paying attention?" Mr. Daniels interrupted. The stress of the past weeks, disappointing test scores, pressure from the department head to improve results, trouble at home, had finally boiled over. And Mai, with her apparent disinterest, had become the target. "I'm sorry," Mai whispered, shrinking deeper into her body. "You know, I've tried to be patient," Mr. Daniels continued, putting down his chalk. "But every day you sit back there, doodling or staring off into space. Do you think you already know everything there is to know about calculus?" A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They weren't used to seeing their usually calm teacher so upset. Mai remained silent, her eyes now fixed on her desk. "Answer me, please," Mr. Daniels insisted. "Do you think this material is beneath you?" The silence stretched uncomfortably long before Mai finally whispered, "No, sir." "Then explain why you never pay attention, why you're always drawing in that notebook instead of taking notes." Mai clutched her notebook tighter, as if afraid he might take it away. Inside were pages of equations that would make little sense to most people, a private world of numbers and patterns. Mr. Daniels walked to the back of the room and stood beside her desk. His shadow fell across her notebook, and she slowly closed it. "I'm sorry if my teaching bores you," he said, quieter now but with an edge to his voice. The whole class was watching, hardly breathing. "But in my 20 years of teaching, I've found that even the brightest students need to pay attention." Rain tapped harder against the windows, filling the uncomfortable silence. "Maybe," Mr. Daniels said, suddenly striding back to the front of the room, "we need to see just how well you understand the material." He grabbed a fresh piece of chalk and turned to the board. His hand moved quickly, writing out an equation that made several students gasp. It wasn't from their textbook. It wasn't even from the advanced calculus curriculum. Mr. Daniels had reached into his knowledge from his own university days to find something truly challenging. "Ms. Lin," he said, turning back to face the class, his voice calmer but determined. "Please come solve this equation." The chalk he held out was like a challenge, a white flag of surrender, or perhaps a weapon. The students' heads swiveled from their teacher to Mai, waiting for her response. Mai stared at the complex equation on the board, her heart pounding. This was Mr. Daniels' breaking point, and possibly her own too. The chalk hung in the air between them, Mr. Daniels' arm extended, his face set with determination. The classroom had never been so quiet. Even the usual squeaking of chairs had stopped. "Come up here, Ms. Lin," Mr. Daniels repeated, his voice echoing in the silent room. "Show us how you would approach this problem." Mai felt her stomach tighten into a knot. Every instinct told her to stay in her seat, to refuse, to keep her head down like she always did. 23 classmates watched, some with pity in their eyes, others with curiosity. A few even seemed to enjoy seeing the quiet girl put on the spot. "I don't think that's on the syllabus," whispered Tara, a kind-hearted girl who sat near Mai. But Mr. Daniels heard her. "You're right, it's not," he replied. "This goes well beyond what we're studying. In fact, this equation would challenge most college students." He turned back to Mai. "But since Ms. Lin finds our regular material so uninteresting that she can't even pretend to pay attention, maybe this will engage her mind." The equation sprawled across the board in Mr. Daniels' sharp handwriting, a complex differential equation with multiple variables and nested functions. It looked like mathematical gibberish to most of the students. Mai recognized it immediately. It was similar to problems she had been working on for months. Her heart was still racing, but for a different reason now. "Today, please," Mr. Daniels said, tapping his foot. Slowly, Mai rose from her seat. Her classmates' eyes followed her as she walked to the front of the room, her footsteps sounding unnaturally loud on the linoleum floor. Outside, the rain continued to drum against the windows, providing a soundtrack to the tense scene. "Here," Mr. Daniels said, thrusting the chalk into her small hand. "Show us what you can do." May took the chalk, leaving a small cloud of white dust in the air between them. Her fingers trembled slightly as she raised her hand toward the board. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at the equation, having second thoughts. Mr. Daniels asked, a hint of satisfaction creeping into his voice. "Not so easy when you actually have to focus, is it?" But May wasn't hesitating because she was confused. She was deciding which solution method would be most elegant. She began to write. The first few symbols flowed from her chalk smoothly, confidently. Mr. Daniels crossed his arms, waiting for her to stumble, to ask for help, to give up. But May continued, her hand moving steadily now. The class watched in growing amazement as line after line of mathematical notation filled the board. May worked methodically, occasionally stepping back to review what she had written before adding more. There was no hesitation, no erasing, just continuous, purposeful movement. Mr. Daniels' expression changed gradually from smug certainty to confusion, then to disbelief. The equation he had chosen was far beyond high school level. He himself would have needed time and scratch paper to work through it. Yet this 16-year-old girl was solving it from memory, using techniques he barely recognized. 5 minutes passed. Then 7. No one spoke. No one even seemed to breathe. The only sounds were the scratch of chalk on board and the persistent rain outside. Finally, May wrote the last line of her solution and underlined the answer twice. She placed the chalk carefully in the metal tray and stepped back, her eyes still on the board, avoiding everyone's gaze. For several long seconds, Mr. Daniels said nothing. He stared at her work, moving his lips slightly as he checked each step. The students looked from the board to their teacher, waiting. "That's..." Mr. Daniels began, then stopped. He cleared his throat and tried again. "That's correct." A murmur ran through the class. "But that's not possible," someone whispered. "How did she do that?" Mr. Daniels turned to May, really looking at her for the first time. Not at the quiet girl who never participated, but at the person standing before him who had just done something extraordinary. "Where did you learn to solve equations like this?" he asked, his voice much softer now, the anger replaced by genuine curiosity. May finally looked up, meeting his eyes. "I've been studying advanced mathematics since I was 10, she said, her voice barely audible. It was the most anyone in the class had ever heard her speak at once. The bell rang, making everyone jump, but nobody moved to leave. The second bell rang, a warning that students should be in their next class. Still, nobody moved. Every eye was fixed on the board filled with May's neat handwriting, or on May herself, who stood awkwardly at the front of the room. Mr. Daniels finally broke the silence. "Everyone should get to their next class," he said, his voice lacking its usual authority. "You can go too, May, but I'd like to speak with you during lunch period if that's okay." As students reluctantly gathered their things, whispers filled the room. May slipped back to her desk and quickly packed her notebook and pencil case into her backpack. She could feel their stares as she left the classroom and hurried down a hallway. "Hey, May, wait up." She turned to see Tara jogging to catch up with her. "That was amazing," Tara said, falling into step beside her. "How did you do that?" That equation looked like it was written in alien language. May gave a small shrug. "It's just patterns. Once you see the patterns, it makes sense." "Well, you sure shocked Mr. Daniels," Tara laughed. His face was priceless. "I think he's still standing in there trying to figure out what happened." Indeed, back in the empty classroom, Mr. Daniels hadn't moved. He was studying May's solution, tracing each step with his finger. In 20 years of teaching, he had never seen anything like it. The approach she had used wasn't even taught at the high school level. Some of the techniques seemed familiar from his graduate studies, but others were completely new to him. By lunchtime, the story had spread throughout the school. When May entered the cafeteria, conversations paused and heads turned in her direction. She quickly got her lunch and found a quiet corner table, hoping to avoid attention. She had just opened her milk carton when Mr. Daniels appeared, carrying his coffee mug and a folder. "May I join you?" he asked, his tone completely different from earlier that morning. May nodded, keeping her eyes on her food. Mr. Daniels sat down across from her and opened the folder. "I've been looking at your school records," he said. "You skipped 2 grades in elementary school. Your standardized test scores have always been in the 99th percentile. Yet there's no mention of any special programs or advanced studies in mathematics." May took a small bite of the sandwich, chewing slowly. "May, I owe you an apology," Mr. Daniels continued. "I misjudged you, and I tried to embarrass you in front of the class. That was unprofessional and wrong of me." She looked up, surprised by his directness. "I'm curious, though," he said, lowering his voice. "Where did you learn to solve equations like that? That was graduate-level mathematics." May hesitated, then reached into her backpack. She pulled out her notebook, the one she was always drawing in during class, and slid it across the table. Mr. Daniels opened it, and his eyes widened. Page after page was filled with complex equations, proofs, and mathematical notations. Some pages had diagrams and geometric patterns. Others had long chains of calculations and notes in the margins. "I've been working on these for years," May said quietly. "I found some old textbooks at the library when I was 10. Then I started following online math forums where university professors post problems. Sometimes they help me when I get stuck." Mr. Daniels flipped through more pages, his coffee forgotten. "May, this is extraordinary. You've been doing this level of mathematics on your own." She nodded. "My parents don't really understand it. They just know I like math. And my class must be painfully boring for you," he realized aloud. "It's okay," she said, a hint of a smile appearing. "I use the time to work on my own problems." Mr. Daniels closed the notebook and handed it back, shaking his head in amazement. "We need to find you more appropriate challenges. The university has a program for exceptional students. With your permission, I'd like to contact the mathematics department there." For the first time since he'd known her, May's face lit up with genuine excitement. "Really? You think they would let me join?" "After what I saw this morning, I have no doubt," he said, smiling back at her. "In fact, I have a colleague there, Dr. Chen, who specializes in the very field you are working on. I think she would be very interested in meeting you." The lunch bell rang, signaling the end of the period. But unlike the awkward moment in the classroom earlier, this bell marked the beginning of something new, a door opening to a world where May's extraordinary abilities would finally be recognized. Word traveled fast in a high school. By the end of the day, everyone had heard some version of what happened in Mr. Daniels' calculus class. Stories spread through text messages, whispered conversations between classes, and excited lunch table discussions. With each retelling, the tale grew more dramatic. She solved an impossible equation. Mr. Daniels tried to embarrass her, but she turned the tables. "She's like some kind of math genius who's been hiding in plain sight." May, unused to attention, kept her head down as she walked through hallways now filled with curious stares and pointing fingers. Some students who had never spoken to her before suddenly smiled or waved. Others seemed intimidated, as if her intelligence was something to fear. That afternoon, May sat in the office of Ms. Rodriguez, the school's guidance counselor, along with Mr. Daniels and the head of the mathematics department, Dr. Wilson, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun. "So," Ms. Rodriguez said, looking over her glasses at May, "Mr. Daniels tells us you have quite a gift for mathematics." May shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "I just like solving problems," she said softly. "She's being modest," Mr. Daniels cut in. "What she demonstrated this morning goes well beyond high school mathematics. I took a photo of her solution and sent it to my former professor at the university. He confirmed that not only was it correct, but she used an approach that was remarkably efficient." Dr. Wilson nodded thoughtfully. "I'd like to see some of your work, if that's okay." Once again, May pulled out her notebook. As Dr. Wilson flipped through the pages, her eyebrows rose higher and higher. "This is extraordinary," she murmured. "You've been working on the Riemann hypothesis." May nodded, "Just exploring some ideas. I know it hasn't been solved yet." "Hasn't been solved in 150 years, Dr. Wilson said with a small laugh. "Some of the best mathematicians in history have tried." Ms. Rodriguez looked between them, clearly not understanding the mathematical references, but recognizing the importance of the moment. "What do you recommend we do here?" she asked the teachers. "Well," Dr. Wilson said, handing the notebook back to May with newfound respect, Our curriculum clearly isn't challenging her. I think we need to create a specialized program. Mr. Daniels nodded in agreement. I've already contacted Dr. Chen at the university. She's eager to meet May and would be willing to mentor her. Mi's eyes widened. Really? Really, Mr. Daniels confirmed with a smile. In fact, she asked if you could visit the mathematics department this weekend. She wants to show you their research facility. For the first time since entering high school, May felt a spark of excitement. A place where people would understand her passion for numbers and patterns. Where she wouldn't have to hide her abilities or pretend to be struggling with basic concepts. We'll need to speak with your parents, of course, Ms. Rodriguez added. This would be a significant change to your educational plan. My mom works evenings, but my dad could come in tomorrow, May offered, her voice stronger than before. Later that afternoon, as students rushed to buses and waiting cars, May found herself walking beside Mr. Daniels toward the parking lot. Thank you, she said quietly, for contacting the university. Mr. Daniels looked at her with genuine regret in his eyes. I should be thanking you for not reporting me to the principal. What I did this morning, putting you on the spot like that, was completely unprofessional. I let my frustration cloud my judgment. It's okay, May said, adjusting her backpack strap. If you hadn't done that, things wouldn't be changing now. Still, he insisted, I failed you as a teacher. I should have recognized your abilities sooner and found appropriate challenges for you instead of assuming you weren't paying attention. They reached the line of yellow buses. You know, Mr. Daniels continued, in 20 years of teaching, I've learned that the most important thing isn't the curriculum or the tests. It's seeing each student, really seeing them for who they are and what they need. I missed that with you, and I'm sorry. Me gave him a small smile. Maybe we both needed to learn something. As she climbed onto the bus, Mr. Daniels watched with mixed emotions. He felt embarrassment over his behavior, amazement at her abilities, and hope for her future. Most of all, he felt a renewed sense of purpose as a teacher. Back in his empty classroom, he erased the board, but not before taking one more photo of May's elegant solution. Something told him this was just the beginning of an extraordinary story. The Lin family apartment was small but meticulously neat. Family photos lined the walls of the living room, May as a toddler holding a puzzle piece, May at age 8, proudly displaying a math competition trophy, May and her parents at her middle school graduation, all three smiling shyly at the camera. Mr. Lin sat on the couch across from Mr. Daniels, Ms. Rodriguez, and Dr. Wilson. His work uniform, a light blue button-up shirt with Riverside Hospital maintenance embroidered on the pocket, was slightly wrinkled after a long day shift. Mrs. Lin couldn't attend. She was working her evening shift at the nursing home. We're very happy with May's grades, Mr. Lin said, his English careful and precise. She always studies hard. Dr. Wilson leaned forward. Mr. Lin, your daughter doesn't just have good grades. She has extraordinary mathematical talent, the kind we rarely see. Mr. Lin nodded, pride evident in his gentle smile. Yes, May loves her numbers. Even as a little girl, she would count everything, stairs, birds, cars. By 4 years old, she was multiplying two-digit numbers in her head. Did you ever have her abilities formally assessed? Ms. Rodriguez asked. When she was 9, her teacher suggested testing, Mr. Lin explained. The school psychologist said she had exceptional abilities. They wanted to put her in a special program at a different school. But she didn't go, Mr. Daniels asked. Mr. Lin shook his head. The school was across town. I could not drive her. I take the bus to work. And my wife works nights. Also, he hesitated. That school had no other Chinese families. Mine was already shy. We worried she would feel too different. Understanding dawned on the educators' faces. May's extraordinary talent had been identified years ago, but practical challenges and concerns about her social adjustment had prevented her from receiving specialized education. So May just continued in regular classes? Dr. Wilson asked. Yes, but she finds her own ways to learn, Mr. Lin said. He stood up and walked to a bookshelf, returning with a stack of advanced mathematics textbooks, all well worn with sticky notes protruding from many pages. She reads these, and she talks to people online, mathematics professors who help her. Mr. Daniels picked up one of the books, Advanced Topics in Number Theory. Inside the cover was an inscription, "To May, whose questions challenge me to think deeper. Keep exploring." Dr. Kumar. "Who's Dr. Kumar?" he asked. "A professor from India," Mr. Lin said proudly. He noticed Mi's posts on a mathematics forum when she was 12. They email about mathematics problems. Last year, he sent her this book. Mi, who had been quietly listening from the doorway, finally stepped into the room. "Dr. Kumar has been like a mentor to me," she explained. "We video chat twice a month. He gives me problems to solve and reviews my work." "You've been studying with a university professor for 4 years?" Dr. Wilson asked, astonished. Mi nodded. "And others too. There's Dr. Flores in Spain and Professor Yamamoto in Japan. We have a small online group. They call us the Young Prodigies Forum. There are 6 of us from different countries." Mr. Daniels looked at the shy girl standing before them with new eyes. Not only had she mastered advanced mathematics on her own, but she had sought out and formed a community of mentors and peers across the globe, all while sitting quietly in his class, appearing disengaged. "Mi," he said gently, "why didn't you tell anyone at school about this?" She shrugged, looking down at her hands. "Nobody asked." And she hesitated. "The last time I showed my abilities in middle school, some kids called me calculator brain and stopped talking to me. It was easier to just blend in." The adults exchanged glances, recognizing how the education system had failed this brilliant young mind. "Well," Ms. Rodriguez said firmly, "things are going to be different now. Dr. Chen at the university is very excited to meet you this weekend. And we're going to create a specialized education plan that challenges you while keeping you connected to your classmates." "I won't have to leave my school?" May asked hopefully. "No," Dr. Wilson assured her. "We're thinking more of a split schedule, mornings at Westfield, afternoons at the University Mathematics Department." Mr. Lin smiled at his daughter. "You see, May, now you don't have to hide your gift anymore." Later that night, after the educators had left, Mai sat at her small desk and opened her laptop. She had exciting news to share with Dr. Kumar and the others. As she typed an email to her online mentors, she felt a weight lifting, the burden of hiding who she truly was. Across town, Mr. Daniels sat in his home office, looking through his teaching notes from the past semester. With a sigh, he began rewriting his lesson plans for May, wondering how many other hidden talents he might have missed over the years. Teaching, he realized, was not just about delivering information, it was about discovering the unique potential within each student. 3 weeks passed quickly. Spring arrived at Westfield High School, bringing cherry blossoms to the courtyard and a fresh energy to the campus. For May, everything had changed. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, she still attended Mr. Daniels' calculus class, but now she sat in the front row. Instead of working silently on her own problems, she helped explain concepts to other students. Mr. Daniels had transformed her from a ghost in the back of the room to his unofficial teaching assistant. "May has a way of breaking down complex ideas," he explained to a colleague in the teacher's lounge. "She can see where students get stuck because she remembers what it was like to learn these concepts as a child." Every afternoon, Mr. Lin would drive me to the university in the family's old Honda, a schedule adjustment he had arranged with his supervisor at the hospital. The maintenance department had been surprisingly flexible once they learned about his daughter's extraordinary abilities. At the university, May worked with Dr. Chen and a small group of graduate students in the mathematics department. The first time she walked into the research building, she had been nervous, clutching her notebook tightly to her chest. Now she moved through the halls with growing confidence, greeting professors by name and engaging in complex mathematical discussions. "Your approach to the Fibonacci sequence application is fascinating," Dr. Chen told her one afternoon as they reviewed Mi's latest work. "Have you considered publishing this?" Mai looked up in surprise. "Publishing? Like in a real journal?" "Absolutely," Dr. Chen nodded. "With some refinement, this could be worthy of submission to the Journal of Number Theory. I'd be happy to help you prepare it." That evening, May shared the news with her parents over dinner. Her mother, though tired from her nursing home shift, listened with shining eyes as Mai explained the significance of potentially publishing a mathematics paper at 16. "We always knew you were special," Mrs. Lin said softly, reaching across the table to squeeze her daughter's hand. But we never imagined this. Back at Westfield High, Mei's transformation wasn't just academic. Tara and a few other students had started joining her for lunch, drawn first by curiosity about her mathematical abilities, but staying for her quiet humor and thoughtful nature. Mei was slowly learning to open up, to share not just her knowledge, but also her personality. On a warm Friday in April, Mr. Daniels prepared for a special class. He had arranged for Mei to give a presentation on mathematical patterns in nature, a topic that combined her advanced understanding with concepts accessible to her classmates. As students filed in, he noticed how differently they treated Mei now. Instead of the invisible girl in the back, she had become someone they respected and, increasingly, liked. Before Mei begins her presentation, Mr. Daniels addressed the class. "I want to share something important." The room quieted. 3 months ago, I made a terrible mistake in this classroom, he said, his voice serious. I tried to embarrass a student because I misunderstood her behavior. I've apologized to Mei privately, but I want to acknowledge publicly that I was wrong. The students shifted uncomfortably, unused to hearing a teacher admit a mistake so openly. What I've learned since then, he continued, is that great teaching isn't just about delivering information. It's about seeing each student, truly seeing who they are and what they need. Some of you learn best through visual examples. Others need hands-on practice. And some, like Mei, may already understand the material but need different kinds of challenges. He gestured for Mei to join him at the front of the classroom. This experience has changed how I teach, he said, and I'm grateful for that lesson. As Mei began her presentation, showing beautiful slides of spirals in seashells and explaining their mathematical properties, Mr. Daniels watched from the side of the room. He noticed every student was engaged, even those who normally struggled with mathematics were captivated by the connection between numbers and natural beauty. 2 years later, Mei would graduate from Westfield as valedictorian, with 3 published mathematics papers to her name. She would receive a full scholarship to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where her work on number theory would eventually earn international recognition. But perhaps more meaningful than these achievements was the acknowledgement she included in her first published paper. I extend my sincere gratitude to Mr. Thomas Daniels, whose challenge in a high school classroom gave me the courage to stop hiding and start sharing my passion for mathematics with the world. Mr. Daniels framed this acknowledgement and hung it on his classroom wall, where it served as a daily reminder. Behind every quiet student might be an extraordinary mind, waiting for the right moment to shine.